All right, welcome back, everybody. And this Monday morning, I think everybody has the question in their mind, are we in a bear market? Is this the start to the bear market for Bitcoin and for potentially all markets? Let's take a look at the weekly time frame. And we in the Discord were already watching these two levels that I told you to pay really, really close attention to. And those two levels were the weekly structure and the monthly market structure. So let's go ahead and draw those in. We made a new high here. And our next high was here in the Model 1 Wyckoff. And we can see that we did break and make a new low here. However, it was just an SFP. So at this point now, we have to take this high, even though it's not following my rules of structure high in the weekly. It is, however, on the 3-day and the daily time frame. So we're just going to tie that in, and we can see that we did break down. So you could have used this structure here to understand that we were breaking down. However, it was just an SFP. So there wasn't a full-on break yet either. And if we make this a little bit lighter so we can see, this wick was also SFP'd here. But we didn't have structure to really follow down here on the weekly time frame. However, we have now clearly had that full-on break of structure with a candle close under this previous weekly low. So this is a full-on market structure shift for me. And that is pretty bearish. It is definitely a macro bearish sign. Now, if we come up to the monthly time frame, let's get rid of our weekly structure. And we can see that our structure points very clearly defined here. And so now we have this structure here, or this low on the monthly time frame. And this is going to be the monthly pending market structure shift. To me, this is the last line in the sand. This is already pretty bearish. And I'm already leaning towards that the bear market is here. However, the market cycles, the environments, the political environments, the economic environments that we're currently in are vastly different than any other cycle that we ever had. So, and the reason I say that is because things could look different this time. So I really want to pay attention to this monthly lower high, which is your last low on the monthly chart. If we get a big candle that looks like this on the monthly chart, and it actually closes below this low, I would say that's 100% signal for a bear market. And we could start coming down even further, or we could just simply put a range in here for 6 months, year, 2 years. If we go back and let's take a look at the same ideas back here in this bear market top, this bull market top, this bull cycle top also led to this bear market, which if any of y'all were around trading Bitcoin back then, this was horrible. This was really about almost 500 days of really bad trading. Low volatility, low volume, less excitement in the charts and the markets. it was just it was a bit boring. But that just goes to show you, after we have a nice bull run, that we can absolutely range here for a year and a half, year to 2 years. So what happened back here? If we follow structure, we can see that month, and we are in the monthly chart still, that monthly time frame market structure shifts was a surefire signal that we were in the bear market. Let's go down to the weekly. So on the weekly time frame, if we were to follow our structure up, you can see that we had two tops. So we had a weekly break here. And you can clearly see that we had a Model 2 Wyckoff here. We did have a second top put in, which was a very weird, strange Model 2. A little bit more broad and spread out. If we come down to the daily time frame, you can see that we had a smaller Wyckoff model here. So they're all over the place as far as a big distribution model. And let's go back to that weekly. And we can see once again, if we were to continue on to our structure pull, once you had this weekly break here, that led us into this very, very long range of the bear market. So I like to use the weekly and the monthly time frame to kind of have a more of a macro view. So let's go back to what it looks like now. As I've already pointed out, if we come down here and we wick this low, create a market structure shift, this would be an SFP of this low, which would then create this as your target. But it has to be a weekly or monthly candle that SFPs here. However, if we get a solid candle below that, and we have a full-on break, just like this one did here, yeah, I'm going to be about 99% sure that we are starting a bear market, and we should welcome a very lengthy range. Now let's take a look really quick at some other macro tools that we use. Let's take a look at our Fibonacci. We see that in our last leg of structure from this low to this high, which is our current weekly and monthly range, we see that we are exactly at the golden pocket currently. And if we come down a little bit further, go down to let's go down to a 30-minute time frame. And we are also watching this parallel channel. And we are still dipping inside that deviation zone and in between the channel low and the deviation zone 1. So we're doing so while in a macro golden pocket. So could this be building an accumulation model right here? Could we have this is a tap 1, this is a tap 2, potential tap 3 here, or coming down a little bit lower some point in this week or next week, tap below tap 2 to make a model 1 into this deviation zone. So we have a few things that we can look out for if things were to try to get bullish here and redeem itself. So let's go back up to that daily time frame. Actually, let's go back to the weekly. Now, when we were back here before any of this happened, and we started pumping up from this range here, we left behind a very large range demand area. And if we see and pull this over, we can see that we never ever came back to mitigate this area. So we have unmitigated demand here that honestly, I would like to come back down and mitigate for a healthy pullback, a good retracement to reach max pain in the markets, because we already know if price came down here, wicked through it really strong, this would scare everybody. Everybody would want to be shorting. Hell, everybody is already shorting. And if we get down here, they're going to get more shorts. And if we start to trade under this low, not necessarily break it, but trade under it on lower time frames, but on the weekly and monthly time frame, it actually creates an SFP. But on the 4 hour, the 1 hour, 15 minute, you're going to have structure in here. However, on the daily, weekly, or monthly, could just be a wick. But the point is a lot of people will be selling all the way through here and even heavier into here. And that can lead to a massive, massive trap. All these shorts will be trapped, and market makers will push it back up, trapping millions and liquidating them. So when you trap all these sellers, when you liquidate them, their position turns into a buy. So these people buying here liquidate these sellers, also turning into more buying, fueling a massive rocket back up to potentially a new high. So could this be our first Wyckoff model like we had here, but we could potentially put in a second top? Also, something to note is when we are coming down here, and we didn't see any of this just yet, everybody was looking for price at this point back in March to come back down and mitigate this demand. It never did. So those are the scenarios I'm looking out for. I am pretty bearish already. However, I'm going to do what I always do, which is I don't predict things on the chart. I wait and follow through with reacting to what is happening on the chart. So I'm not going to predict that we're just going to come down here and go back up. I'm going to wait until we get here and look for evidence that we are going to shift back up. So I'm reacting to the market instead of trying to predict the market. And that's how I trade. So that is it for my macro perspective right now, because I know everything is looking quite bearish. But I do want to point out, even though it is looking quite bearish, that there are some bullish scenarios. And if I was a market maker myself, I would want to trap as many people as possible into thinking that this was going to go down so I could trap them here and send it back up. Because the only way you can enter a massive order anywhere in the market is if you have people selling into your purchasing. So if you want to purchase, say, $1 billion in Bitcoin, you have to have $1 billion selling into your purchase. It's no different than anything else in life, whether we're talking about a coffee or a house. You have to have both sides, a buyer and a seller, to complete the transaction. I'll leave you all here. Catch me in the Discord. Talk to y'all later.